Hello YouTube, Matt here with a model review. It's been a little while, but of course this one is the one that will probably appear all over YouTube in the next few days, if not weeks. This is of course Locomotion Models and Rails of Sheffield tied up and in partnership with Dapol. This is of course the South Eastern and Chatham Railway 440 D Class. This one is of course the exclusive Locomotion Models variant, number 737, which is on display at the National Railway Museum in York. This was announced, I believe, somewhere in October 2019, so it's been a little while, mainly due to a certain virus going around the world and causing some delays and a few other bits and pieces. As ever, this review will be open and honest. I'm not tied to anybody, I'm not being paid for it. This is my own money buying this model. So the fact is that you will get a frank and honest review, so if anything I see is wrong, you'll get to hear about it. So let's dive straight in and have a look at what we have in front of us. So this model is available in several liveries, starting from the top, obviously the South Eastern and Chatham preserved version 737, which is the National Railway Museum's model, or Locomotion Models, as well as South Eastern and Chatham number 488, available from Rails, South Eastern and Chatham 726 Grey, and Southern 1730 inlined Maunsell olive green, Southern Railways 1734 sunshine livery in black, BR 31731 plain black sunshine lettering, and finally BR 31574 in BR Early lined livery. So what's in the box detail wise? So we have quite an assortment of bits and pieces here, so we've got quite a lot to add on if you want to. This model is obviously set up for second radius curves, so it should be okay with those. But you can see we have some traction tyres here, spare ones, as this has traction tyres on the front pair of driving wheels. But also a nice touch here is we have a spare front driving wheel without the traction tyre on, all painted, decorated, with I believe crank pin screws and also a metal pole for some bizarre reason. Not quite sure what that's for. Also have cab doors which actually slot into the side of the interior of the cab. I believe these two items are for the DCC tray, which is inside the smoke box, and you have to remove the smoke box door. Also have the guard irons over here, which you can add on just behind the buffer beam on the front. You have the steam or vacuum pipes, and also some more buffer beam pipe detail. So let's start on the front end and do a general tour around the model. So on the front end we have two sprung buffers, which are also nicely lined and painted. Also beautifully lined out on the outside of the buffer beam, and also nicely shaded and printed numbers and letters. Separately fitted detail like the lamp irons and the handles on the smoke box saddle, as well as the vacuum or steam pipe on the top. On the smoke box itself we've got some nice highlights of the burnished steel on the smoke box door and handle, as well as the grab handle, grab rail or handrail around the front. The only small letdown I would say on this in particular is the chimney. It is not a copper chimney, it's just painted, so that's a little bit of a disappointing area and could be improved upon. Other than that, if we go round to the side a little bit more, as you can see, the wheels are beautifully painted, lined out, as well as the truck itself. We've got some lubricator items on the side of the smoke box. And also, if we just lean in, you can see between the frames there a nice void with nice levels of detail between the frames of all the valve gear. As you can see, nicely painted and decorated along the boiler bands here. This is a 5 band option on this one, so it's not they do 4 or 5 I believe on the tooling options. On the top, as you can see, we have some nicely polished safety valve and dome, which was one of the drawbacks of the Hornby models, because the dome was chromed but the safety valve bonnet was not, it was just painted. So this is nice that they've done that separately and also made both of them chrome. So we've got some beautiful printing again. Another letdown is the painted brass strip over the splashes. The printing on the crest here, I think, is actually really nice, and it's actually legible, the writing on the outside, so that's great. Really nice detail. On the actual driving wheels, of course, they're metal and nicely painted too, and we've got the con rod up there as well. Brake rigging painted, etc. Small detail it could be improved is these printed numbers here. Of course, you can get some etches and improve that slightly if you wish. Got some glazed cab windows here as well, nice and flush. The other small disappointment, and I know it's been discussed several times on the forums, is this lining here, which just ends on the front of the cab, or the front leading edge of the cab. Unfortunately, the guys at Shildon decided to omit or not carry out the lining which carries on, or should carry on, over the top of the splashes. Unfortunately, the process would mean several runs, higher costs, and probably not line up properly. I find that a bit of a shame, because obviously it just stops dead right there and looks a bit strange. I may look at possibly looking at getting some transfers made for that bit, because it is quite annoying visually to look at. So that's a bit of a shame, but other than that, most of the livery is there, and you can see also down here the livery kind of stops there, and it should carry on down here, so another area that could be improved. So cab and tender, you can see in the cab here, it's really beautifully detailed as per normal. Also, I'll mention as well, when I got mine, I usually have a look, scout around the model and make sure everything's there, intact, tight, and everything's not falling off in the post. On this one, I found the 2 screws underneath the cab, which are actually a body fixing screw, one at the front and one at the back. And also on the instructions where the screws are, the rear screw they've highlighted is the wrong screw. Bit strange, but there you go. But when I opened it up, I found the 2 screws at the rear were loose, they weren't even tight. So I'm not sure if mine was made on a Friday, but the fact is it was quite loose, and also the running plate was not level with the tender, which the prototype is as well. I've noticed quite a lot of mentionings of why is the loco so high compared to the tender on quite a few of the prototypes, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, the loco is still quite high. I'm not sure if there's a problem or if there's an issue, but it's a little bit of annoyance because it doesn't all line up properly. But in the cab, as I say, nicely detailed. You also have a firebox flicker. When I did try mine and check mine was working, it was quite obscured by cables and bits and pieces, so I needed to push a few out the way just to get an effect, as it were, the firebox flicker effect. Now also on this model, if we turn it around, the tender drawbar is something quite new. And if I just take it easy and separate it like so, you can see it's a PCB which slots into the front of the tender, as you can see there. Never seen this done like this before. I'm actually not too encouraged by it in a way, because you have to remember that everybody's layouts are different and they're not all billiard table smooth and without any bumps or jumps or poor track work or good track work. The fact is, if you have no movement or if you have a rigidity between these two, it might lead to derailments. Now I believe it's also due to the balance of the model on the front and the back. What I haven't mentioned is the loco does seem to be quite light despite its metal boiler. The running plates and surrounding cab is all plastic from what I remember from the original tooling photos. So that is a little bit concerning. I do have a worry if it goes over a bump in the track work that it will derail, but we'll see what happens when they get them out on the layouts. So moving across to the tender, you can see on the front it's really beautifully lined out all the way around, as it should be. You can see the plug socket here for the PCB, which also balances the locomotive in terms of keeping the weight on the driving wheels. We have our normal fake coal load, which is quite easily removable. You can see there, so you can put your own real coal on the top. On the sides, you can see here it is beautifully lined out along the running plates, steps, around the axle boxes, and even, I believe, printing on the axle boxes SECR on there as well. So this is all really nicely done, really nicely printed. Another small bugbear of mine is the spacing of the letters on the tender. This isn't correct at all. They should be wider apart and spaced out a little bit more. From photos I've seen, from the preserved example, I think there's possibly about 3 or 4 millimeters out. The and shouldn't be above the axle box, it should be a bit to one side, and with the letters spaced out a bit further either side. So that's a bit of a disappointment. If it gets too annoying, you can probably change them with say Fox transfers if you wish. Possibly looking at that, may do that if I'm brave enough and have a go. But other than that, it looks really nice, really nicely printed, nicely finished. Moving around to the back, we have our sprung buffers, guard irons and standard tension lock. Printed number plate on the rear and nicely fitted separate handrails, etc. Moving around to the other side, again same story on here, nicely printed, nicely decorated, really nicely lined out, and again the spacing of the lettering is not correct, so that will need to be looked at. I did bring this up on the original painted samples, but obviously wasn't picked up by anybody. But never mind, what a modeller's life would be without any errors. Okay, getting close up on the slightly more detailed side. So again, you can see the splashes, really nice, really nicely finished. Nice crest, lubricator pot on the top. Onto the steam reverse, and you can see they've paid quite a lot of attention to this area, even underneath the running plate as well. Nicely detailed wheels again, sand pipes, etc. But yeah, that reverser is something which is really nicely done, really nicely finished and printed. You can see all the valve gear in there as well. Moving along, you can see the builder's plate, Ashford probably here, underneath the smoke box saddle and the lubricator. But overall it is nicely decorated, nicely finished. I know someone may say it, but there's some small sort of I don't know what to describe them as really, but slight sort of offcuts in the middle of the spokes, but that's on the original locomotive as well, so that's fine. You can just see them a bit better around there. That's fine, that's all on the actual locomotive. I had a look and thought that looked a bit weird on the original, but there you go. So they are there. And again, the lining is sort of stops before it gets behind the reverser, which again is a bit unfortunate. Maybe I can find some transfers and remedy that myself. So overall, a general review, it's a nice model, lacking a little bit of weight up front as I feel or how I see it. Not sure about the drawbar between tender and loco. It's the first of its kind. You know, go back to basics and keep it simple, otherwise you'll find more problems than really what you expect. Not everyone has a billiard table smooth layout. The decoration is really nice, nicely applied. Small disappointments on some parts of the livery being left out for obviously technical reasons and being too complicated on the surface. Overall it is generally really nice. Now the thing is, we now have to try it out running, and I've already tried it and I know how it runs, but let's take it to the rolling road and see how it gets on. So to round up then, so this model runs nicely. Price is about £200, which in today's climate is not too bad. If I had to build a kit of one of these from say South Eastern Finecast, it would probably cost me closer to £300–400. So at the end of the day you're getting a painted, running, digital ready model for £200. So to me that is reasonable when you look at other models, say Green Arrow, what they're doing for Locomotion Models, which is about £239. So it's quite a big difference, but also in today's climate not bad at all in price. There's a small few negative bits and pieces like spacing on lettering, missing lining, but obviously they can't do that, and also the over complexity of the electronics and things like the drawbar, the sliding next 18 tray in the smoke box. Is it really necessary? You know, it's a lot to put into a model. What's wrong with just keeping a drawbar, a normal one with a plug? Okay, the leads and the wires will get snagged sometimes and broken. Maybe we need to look at magnetic connectors or something like that. But at the end of the day, if you overload the complexity, then the price will go up, but also the reliability also goes down. And as I say, I don't know how this model would respond on a slightly bad track laying layout, if you know what I mean. Will that drawbar make it derail? Will the front end not balance out properly? So who knows? But at the end of the day, it's a good price for a model. Bits are overcomplicated, decoration's really nice. As I say, some bits are missing, but it doesn't really matter. Plenty of details to add, great thought out in terms of an extra driving wheel with no traction tyre. Not quite sure what motor's in it. I believe it's a 5-pole. Pickups are on the tender and only on the 4 main driving wheels. KDs I believe were 18s or 19s depending on your curvature of track. But anyway, I hope you find this review useful. It's a nice model, not to be sniffed at, so if you're going to get one, get an order in pretty soon, because I imagine these will disappear quite quickly. The South Eastern and Chatham ones are already out and available through Rails and Locomotion Models. The rest are following in batches from Dapol, so keep an eye out. Various liveries are available. Hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it's so long, and we'll see you again in the next video.